episode 2 of Breaking News Bears with Dynasty Sports Network. I'm the host for today, Evan Davis, and we will be dissecting my division finally, the NL West. It's been a while. I've been excited to do this. How are you guys doing? Mario, what's up?
Oh, I'm doing good, man. A lot of sleep. I've not got a lot of sleep over the last couple of days. Setting up what you'll see on your screen here, DSN. Link will be in the description below. Definitely go check it out. We got all things covered sports, including Breaking News Bears. It'll be all the future episodes listed on Dynasty Sports Now. We got hockey. We got a bunch of articles. Mateo wrote a terrific article on the Rule 5 with Barry Bonds. A terrific storyline to say the least. Definitely go check that out. Evan went on the hockey side of things with Jack Eichel's return to Vegas, and I took some other hockey standpoints on it with the Selke voting now up and coming. So go check it out. We got a lot of content coming your way, including this new episode of Breaking News Bears. So please stay tuned for more content on Dynasty Sports Network. But Evan, take it away, my man.
All right, yeah, for sure. Mateo, what's up?
Oh, no, I'm good, man. I mean, Mario described pretty much what I'm up to. I mean, really excited about DSN, and I'm, ready to get into this episode too. So.
All right, for sure. Well, let's dive into it. I've been so excited to finally talk about my team. We're going to start right off the bat. The Los Angeles Dodgers, lost two notable pieces. One was kind of expected in Corey Seager. Another one was kind of a shock in Max Scherzer. There were reports that that the Dodgers were going to offer 3 years, $90 million. The New York Mets offered 3 years at I don't remember, 100 something million. I can't remember exactly what it was, but a lot more than what the Dodgers had to offer. They signed Andrew Heaney from the New York Yankees. They're saying that it could possibly be another Robbie Ray situation. Trevor Bauer was found not guilty by the Supreme Court. Max Muncy tore his UCL, so now there's reports that maybe the Dodgers target a guy like Freddie Freeman, the California native, to bring into that lineup and slide him into the Corey Seager spot. And they just really need starting pitching. Clayton Kershaw injuries really killed him towards the end of last year. Dustin May is out until, I believe, at least a third of this season or first half of this season with Tommy John. And Tony Gonsolin just hasn't really been a starter that we can trust. But I'll get into you guys. Mario, I gave them a B-, just also because I think them signing Corey Seager was almost a positive rather than a negative, because I think obviously we saw Gavin Lux wasn't able to play in the outfield, and he's a true second baseman. We saw Trey Turner have defensive struggles at second base. He's more of a true shortstop, arguably a top 5, top 3 shortstop in baseball. B-, I think it was positive for letting Seager go. Obviously, you let Scherzer go, but what were your thoughts?
Yeah, so it's hard to really go against and very far off from the Dodgers. They had a good offseason, but also at the same time, you lose a bunch of pieces that I personally don't think they had really a chance of retaining. They were in a pretty tough spot. They all tried to go in for it last year, bringing in Scherzer, and obviously it didn't pan out as such. But you go look at a guy that they had to go, and this is a tough blow. I know you've been mentioning it numerously on the show, Evan. Corey Seager, he's the heart and soul of the Los Angeles Dodgers. He takes a leave, and no, I think that I'll give him a B+, just because you keep Chris Taylor, so at least you know that you were able to beat the free agent market and keep a guy like that you've already had on your team. So I think that's the one positive you can look at it. But other than that, nothing too crazy. Maybe they bring in another guy once the offseason resumes. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Freddie Freeman possibly making his hometown trip. We've been hinting at it. I wouldn't say we. Evan has been hinting at it throughout the Breaking News Bears lineage of podcasts, but. No, definitely. I don't think they're done yet. This team's already stacked as is, and it probably is going to get better as the weeks go on once we see the offseason come back in full swing. So that's all my take on offseason.
I completely forgot about Chris Taylor and they got him at $15 million a year for the next 4 years. I mean, Trey Turner's owed money at the end of this year. If the Dodgers somehow don't re-sign Trey Turner, I mean, you could get a starting shortstop in Chris Taylor for $15 million a year and then really expand your team elsewhere, just given the versatility of a guy like Chris Taylor, the super utility man. Mateo, what's up? What are we giving the Dodgers?
Yeah, I mean, Dodgers fans, you lost, one of your best pitchers. You lost probably one of your best bats in the lineup. And, you've got a ton of injuries that have decimated your lineup, and you're still going to win the division because you're the freaking LA Dodgers. So as much as As much as I want to say that this offseason is a failure, I mean, it really hasn't been. I mean, you have pitching questions that you need to address, and as of now, it's a C, maybe a C plus, just because of how great the value on that Chris Taylor deal was. But you've lost everything, and somehow you're still going to be completely okay. So I wouldn't lose too much sleep over it, Dodgers fans.
Yeah, I know. I mean, in Friedman we trust. And I mean, the Scherzer deal, I think it was, as much as he is a great pitcher, and there's no doubt that he can have Cy Young potential, I trust Andrew Friedman in the fact that, like, okay, like this was our offer, and if he doesn't like it, then screw it. We'll figure something else. We'll spend money elsewhere. And I think that's kind of like what allows the Dodgers to be kind of fluctual, is that their ownership's discipline, and like we can't overspend because it might hurt us, but we can use the money elsewhere. Okay, in terms of record, I mean, I have them starting at 100 wins, ceiling at 104. I mean, they're always around that high 90s, low 100 range. What's up with that? Like, what do you think, Mateo? Where do you see this record?
Yeah, realistically, I have them at 102 with a ceiling of 107, depending on
Oh,
the
wow,
kind of
thank you.
performances they get. Yeah, the Dodgers are a good team, man. They're going to win 100 games. I mean, there's not much to say. There's too much talent on this team for them to underperform. I mean, if you're not going to get it from one guy, you're going to get it from the other guy. And, it doesn't necessarily take all these guys performing at their best, because if they did, they'd probably be in 110, 115 win team. But I think 102 is a fair estimate for this team with the injury landscape. You hope to get some of these guys back partway through the year, but where they sit right now, I think 102 is fair.
Yeah, and Max Muncy, I mentioned the torn UCL. That's most likely keeping him out the whole year.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a tough injury to have, especially for a guy who's hit 35 home runs in every year besides the shortened season that he's been with the Dodgers. So that's where guys like Freddie Freeman could come in and end it off. But Mario, where are you at? What's the win total here?
Yeah, so I wish I could give you a different answer, but you can't really give too many different answers with a
hard.
star-studded lineup with the Dodgers. I'm in the same boat as Mateo, around the 102, 107 range. I mean, they're just a talented team in a very untalented division. So they're going to succeed regardless of how the players turn out or whatever, because these guys know how to play. The other components in the division are going to play their own role naturally, their own weird spots, which we'll be dissecting further in this episode. But no, there's nothing really too crazy to really analyze here. It's a good team. Other teams they're going to be beating up on are going to be at their disposal. So, yeah, it's my take.
And then team MVP for me, I have the huge acquisition last year, Trey Turner. I have him being the MVP, finally being able to play the position that he's been playing his entire career. I mean, he did play second base a little bit, but we saw in Washington it was mainly shortstop. That's where he thrives. I mean, I had the privilege of going to his debut, and when they played the Angels, and my God, that guy can fly. Like you see it on TV, but like when you see it in person, this dude, like he scored from first to home on a ball that was 5 feet out of the infield and beat the throw by like a mile. I mean, it's just insane given his talent and potential. Constantly hits above 305, gives you anywhere between 25 home runs, maybe like 80 RBIs. It's hard getting the RBIs when you're batting first, but the runs scored is the huge part. And he can definitely be the difference. Him and Mookie Betts, oh my God, I forgot about him. They definitely can be that 1-2 punch in the lineup, speed-wise as well, batting. But give it to you, Mario. Who's taking home the bling for the Dodgers?
Yeah, I'm going to go twofold here. This guy is going to be a pitcher, and it's going to be Walker Buehler. I can see this guy even capturing a Cy Young. He is that dominant. He had such a dominant season last year, and I think it's going to spill over to 2022. This guy knows how to strike guys out at a ridiculous rate. He knows how to work batters. He knows how to do just about everything you want out of an ace of a starting pitcher. Yeah. He's going to be leading the I think he might be filling the shoes of Max Scherzer in the Dodgers blue. So I wouldn't be too disappointed that you lost Max Scherzer, because I think you're going to get a better form of him this year in Walker Buehler.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Walker Buehler is unbelievable out of Vanderbilt. Has been clutch in every way. Huge reason why they won the ring in 2020. Just absolutely dominant in the most important situations. Mateo, team MVP.
I'm going to go Cody. I'm gonna pick Cody Bellinger for
Ooh.
team MVP this year. I mean, it's been a
All
while
right.
since we've seen him at his best, and I think people have sort of forgotten, exactly what we can get from Cody Bellinger. And I think this postseason was a little bit of a little bit of a reminder. Cody kind of stepped in at a few big moments and was like, this is what you're gonna get from me. And I really hope that that's like, I want to believe that that's the version of Cody Bellinger that we're going to get. I mean, we know
Mhm.
that he is one of the most inconsistent players in baseball with, even just the gap between 17 and 18, rookie of the year into his 28 season that really wasn't that great. And then into 2019 where he was, one of the best players in baseball. But by far the worst year of his career last year. So, I mean, the only way you can go is up, and I'm expecting that to be a big up for Cody Bellinger. I want to believe that he's got it figured out and that his mind's right, and he'll be ready to contribute to this team in a huge way next year.
Yeah, I mean, Cody Bellinger definitely needs a bounce back year. It has not been pretty. I mean, injuries have definitely
Yeah,
rattled it since
yeah.
his MVP season. Durability, uh, he just hasn't been able to stay healthy. And he was actually my make or break player this year was Cody Bellinger, because if he can be just like half of what that MVP season was, it definitely makes the Dodgers really, really dangerous in the postseason. Cy Young was Mario's MVP. Walker Bueller, I mean, it's obvious, unless they get something else, another pitcher that they trade for. I mean, Andrew Friedman's willing to do whatever it takes in order to make his teams uber competitive. And a team like Dodgers that's in win now mode, the prospects don't really matter at this point. But I have Walker Bueller as my Cy Young. Was it unanimous? Did anybody else pick someone other than Bueller?
And Bueller as well. I mean, I don't think there's any question that he might be in contention for the league Cy Young. So I mean,
Yeah.
I bet against him here.
Mario, do you pick?
Oh, I mean, I got Walker Bueller. Obviously, I think he's going to
Okay.
be the team Cy Young and the league Cy Young, maybe. But if you want to give another
Mhm.
name, just for the sake of argument, maybe even Dustin May when he comes back. He's a solid pitcher. You know what
Yeah,
you're going to get from
he's
him.
really
He's a
good.
flamethrower. But again, you're going to cut his season pretty short. I think he's coming back from Tommy John, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's going to be an interesting storyline to follow there. But he's a capable guy to pull his weight as well.
Yeah. Dustin May is one of the rare pitchers that I've seen throw 100-mile-an-hour four seam and 100-mile-an-hour sinker. It's crazy what he can do out of just being barely in the MLB yet. But make or break, I said Cody Bellinger. Is there anyone else you guys had? I mean, potential rebuild.
It's a weird one. Maybe even AJ Pollock I could throw in there. I don't know. I need
Yeah.
to see some production out of him. There's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
guys who you're going to get the production. A lot of very few ones that you might not. Cody Bellinger is one of them who was a bit of uncertainty just because of the season he had prior. But AJ Pollock, he's something that maybe can
Mm-hmm.
switch around there. If he's firing on all cylinders,
Yeah.
you're pretty well off if you're the Dodgers.
Yeah, I mean, injuries rattled Pollock.
Mhm.
That's why Chris Taylor then became so prominent off-season wise, because you just don't know what AJ Pollock's going to be like this year, and Chris Taylor can definitely slide in here or there. I mean, there were times where Chris Taylor was coming into the game in the 9th inning or the 7th inning because AJ Pollock just couldn't play anymore. But Mateo, who's make or break?
Yeah, I'll throw Gavin Lux's name in there. I mean, you
That's a good one.
mentioned Chris Taylor. He's a guy who you're, probably expecting to be more of an infielder this year with the departure of Corey Seager. He'll obviously have his time in the outfield, but he'll have to, fill some holes, whether it's at second, whether it's at third, depending on who's playing on any given day. But the one thing that I have questions about with Gavin Lux is sort of where he fits in, because obviously you expect him to be sort of the everyday second baseman sort of thing. If he can handle that sort of thing, is what I guess we'll see by the end of the season. But I think it'd be interesting to consider right now, like, your first baseman is Matt Beatty, or is it going to be Chris Taylor, or is it maybe going to be Cody Bellinger moving down from the outfield to play first base, or is it maybe going to be Gavin Lux trying to solidify himself at a different position as well? I think it might be something to consider. Not something he's done in the past, but I mean, the Dodgers clearly aren't afraid to play around with where Gavin's going to play. Yeah. And I think it could be interesting because, he wants to get in the lineup every day. He's got to get in the lineup every day. It's about time that you see what you have in him. Yeah. And, the fit might be there. I mean, I'm just throwing it out the wall. I don't know, maybe a Dodgers fan would have a different perspective.
No,
but yeah.
No, I do agree. I think the reason why, I'll say it again, the reason why Chris Taylor became so valuable in the offseason is because you don't know if Gavin Lux can play a full year. And, if there's just spurts where it's just not it, then you can move Pollock to left field, move Chris Taylor to second, and you're confident with Chris Taylor at second base. Like, that's why at 15 million, you're basically paying him to play every position besides pitcher or catcher. I mean, he can really do it all for them. And it's the reason why I didn't want them to re-sign Corey Seager, because I think it is time for Gavin Lux to finally show Dodger fans. I mean, he was rated as one of the top prospects in baseball coming up. And I thought that if the Dodgers re-signed Corey Seager, they would have had to have traded Gavin Lux, because there's just no value for him on your bench. You would have gotten ample amount of value for him via trade. But no, you're right. Gavin Lux definitely. I mean, I was at the game where he hit that 3-run homer against Seattle and absolutely went ballistic. There's definitely been like moments where he's shown that he's ready for the big game, but then again, that's in like 60 games. Now it's adding 100 more to that. But yeah, no, definitely has the opportunity now with the departure of Seager to prove that he's ready for the show. I'll switch gears to the team that I hate, the Bay Area, the San Francisco Giants, who, I'm just going to say it, we can disagree. We can agree to disagree. I thought that whole season was a Cinderella story where everyone was just hot. I mean, going into the year, they were projected at 75 wins, and they ended up winning 107 games. We eliminated them, though. Check the fucking change. Other than that, I mean, they did lose Buster Posey to retirement. They lost Kevin Gausman to your guys' Toronto Blue Jays. We saw the emergence of Logan Webb. Really, there were a lot of guys that were just hot that we didn't expect to get hot. So I have them. I believe I gave them their offseason grade of a C plus. There's just not much that they're really doing. I mean, I don't know. They can bring guys in here, there. Oh, I'm sorry. I gave them C plus. They re-signed Alex Wood. They re-signed Anthony Discofani. There's a chance that Chris Bryant leaves. I mean, there's that looming possibility that he becomes a Philadelphia Philly with joining his best friend in Bryce Harper. But, the offseason grade, it was just, they need more. And I don't trust that these guys can run it back. And I don't think Kevin Gausman did either. And that's why he decided to go to Toronto and not re-sign with the Giants. But Mateo, I'll start with you. What's their offseason grade? And I'll ask you as a Blue Jays fan, and I'll ask you, Mary, as a Blue Jays fan as well. What was your thought when Kevin Gausman decided to come to Toronto and not re-sign with the Giants, given the fact that the Giants had just won 107 games?
I think, yeah. I mean, we are going to be doing a little bit of disagreeing on this, but for probably not the reason you'd expect, because I gave the Giants a D- for their.
Oh, thank you. I love you now.
I went a little bit harsher on them than you did. I mean, they haven't done anything to get better. They lost Gausman. They're going to lose Bryant, and a lot of the success of their season was based on platoons and role players performing way over what we expected them to do. And so with a team like the Giants, I think it sort of ties into what you're saying with why Gausman left. Is a player is going to want to see, after a season like that, you have a fantastic regular season, and it obviously ends in disappointment in the playoffs. But yeah, I know you're going to be smug about that. But after a season like that, what a player and what a team wants to see is they want to see buy-in from ownership. They want to see, a team go out and make a big splash. They want to see that big signing, that big addition to sort of push them over the edge. Granted, they had 107 wins last year, and I'm sure they believe they could do it themselves. But if you want to get your players to buy in, you have to contribute. You have to go and make a move and, talk to them and not only tell them, but show them that you guys are for real. We want you to have sustained success. And I don't think the ownership bought in. I don't think as a result, because the ownership bought in, I don't think the players bought in. I think that's why you see a guy like Gausman leave for a team that, quite frankly, actually has a future, instead of a team that's letting their top players go. And, Posey, it sucks, but he had to retire, and you respect that. But you're losing Chris Bryant, you're losing Kevin Gausman, and you're probably not going to be great next year. I mean, I'm not high on the Giants at all. I have to agree with you there, but
definitely
very disappointed by their offseason so far.
Yeah, it's like, if you're Giants ownership, it's like, fuck, like, what do we do here? Because you're in a situation where everyone got hot, but it's like, can you rely on them? Do we trade them? Like, if we trade them, do they continue that success? Like, it's such a weird situation, given the fact that they weren't great leading up to this year, and then all of a sudden just shot out of a cannon. and now you're like, fuck, like what do we do? Like what's the role? So Mario, I'll get to you. What are your thoughts on the Giants offseason, and pose the same question when Kevin Gosman decided to choose the Blue Jays over the Giants and to commit for 5 years? I mean, that's a huge commitment. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, so I'll start off by saying the Giants, if they want to understand what they have to do in the future going forward, what's the plan for this upcoming season, I suggest they dig up the notes that they had before they played last season, because you have to treat it like it was a one-off. It's not happening. You're getting production that I'm not a big analytics guy, but no analytics guy was ever proven that those big guys, those platoon guys, like you mentioned, Mateo, are going to be putting up those numbers, and it's not going to happen again. I can assure you that. I'm not certain about a lot of things in sports, but that one I could definitely bet my bottom dollar on. So absolutely right with you being a Cinderella story. I can't expect to see any other production from this team whatsoever, but you treat it like it was a one-off year. You go back to the drawing board, you don't change any of your thinking, and you just go towards, well, what do we have to do to rebuild? You're still in a rebuilding stage right now. You're not in a retooling or anything like that. You are still in your rebuilding stage. Last year, you had the shot at doing something special. And if you did, everyone would love you. It's like maybe the Washington Nationals, if you want to look at it that way. You had that shot. They took their shot. They ran away with their opportunity, and they got rewarded from it. And ever since then, nothing's been the same. The San Francisco Giants could have found themselves in the same boat, but they didn't get it done against the Los Angeles Dodgers. I know how much you love to see that, Evan. But if I'm going to give them a grade, it's got to be around a D, C plus, C minus D, because you lose a lot more than you gain, and it's hard to really combat a grade value scale like that if you're going that sort of direction. In respect to Kevin Gosman, however, I remember saying this a bunch. I'm going to live on the hill and die on the hill, and I hope it proved me wrong, just to see the city of Toronto flourish from their baseball team. I was not very big on the acquisition, just because I haven't seen Gosman put up a consistent winning record in his career. Yeah. And I mean, I've said it all. I'm going to just stick to it. I'm not going to change up any of my words or mince the words there. It's just what I believe. And I'm sure he's going to prove me wrong. I'm sure he's going to have another successful season. And it's great for him that he's actually understanding that the San Francisco Giants, the management, threw in the towel, I would say, right after their playoff loss. And you haven't seen anything of management's faith in the team. So why should the team have any faith in management? And I think Kevin Gosman took exception to that and headed over down up the border to Toronto. And
I think as well, the main critique of Gosman just on the Blue Jays as well is people have, gone to his stats in the AL East in his time with Baltimore and stuff. And obviously you can count that as essentially a different pitcher than the Gosman that, we've seen in San Francisco. And maybe he's had some coaching revelation like our own Robbie Ray did. And he's a better player because of it. But it's obviously not something that's going to be easy to overlook until, you see him on the mound and you see him dealing the way you expect him to. So, yeah, there's a few question marks still, but I think Jays fans overall are happy. And I think Gosman's in a better situation too. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised that the Giants hater gave them the best grade. I thought that, like, at least, they re-signed the pitchers that they needed to, because if they didn't do that, then it would have been really terrible. But no, you are right. Like, this ties into who, like for Team for Team MVP, if we want to now segue over to that, I actually have Logan Webb, because I am very confident in him. That second half of the season was probably one of the best in the MLB. I would say definitely behind a guy like Max Scherzer. He was dominant. I mean, he smoked the shit out of my Dodgers. Like that first playoff game, like 10 strikeouts, like barely gave up anything to allow any sort of offense, and the pitches that he can throw, it fools you for a loop. And I really thought that Gosman and Webb could be that 1-2 punch moving forward, but ultimately it's just the Giants didn't do enough they should have been aggressive to start the offseason if they knew that Posey was going to retire. And unfortunately they didn't do that. Now they lost their 1-2 punch. But yeah, Logan Webb's my team MVP, because I also believe Chris Bryant is leaving. I don't think he sees this team. I view them as the West Coast Cubs. Like, there's just nothing really there for Chris Bryant to say, I'm confident that this team can run it back. And I wouldn't be surprised if he did leave. I mean, he didn't re-sign with them right away. And they did give up a sum to get him. So Mario, I'll start with you, team MVP, and then why don't you throw me your Cy Young as well, and then Mateo, you follow.
Yeah, so for the team MVP, I'm probably going to have to go with Mike Yastrzemski. He's a terrific talent in the outfield. I think he's one that's only going to get better. There's nothing much to say about him. He put up terrific stats last year. He's a power bat. He can hit for a little bit of average, but you kind of know what he's going to do. He's going to use that short porch in right field and smash a lot of baseballs in the water. So you know what you're going to get from him. That's one of the consistencies and the certainties you have with this Giants lineup. In regards to the Cy Young for the team, I might have to go with Alex Wood. He, you know what again, it's just all about certainties. The San Francisco Giants, they're not going to have a lot of it this year. I think I'm going to just tackle all the ones they do have. Alex Wood's going to probably remain dominant. Probably one of the more top end starting pitchers they have aside from Logan Webb, but and I mean they got Descalfani too, but I'll throw in Alex Woods there as a team Cy Young.
For sure. And then Mateo, who do we got?
I've got the baby giraffe, Brandon Belts. I mean, he's a guy who I've always liked watching at first base. And he's a guy who had a monster of a season last year that honestly, I don't think anybody could have expected. I think it was about like 10 home runs more than he's ever put up before. Good enough for 16th in the National League. Brandon Belt is a guy who has been, you know, a key part of this Giants team for a very long time. And it brings me joy to make him to see him succeed, no matter how much pain it brings you as a Dodgers fan. But he's a guy, veteran presence, a guy who's clearly figured it out. And, you know, I'm looking for him to have another great season next year. Obviously, one of the main critiques of the Giants is the fact that they don't hit enough home runs. And if Brandon Belt is going to hit you 30, that's a good start. So he's my team MVP.
All right, yeah, and for me, said team MVP Logan Webb, Cy Young, Logan Webb. I really am high on him. If there is one person on the Giants I do love to see, it is Logan Webb. Not against my team, but I mean he really turned around a first half of the season that was very underwhelming and definitely picked it up tremendously in the second half. Let's move over to make or break. For me, it's LaMonte Wade Jr. and I'm more on the make side just because I have zero clue what his value is going to be like. He was a contact hitter that provided the Giants with a few more wins that they shouldn't have had. He definitely won them a few games here and there, but I mean, honestly, I thought it was just another Cinderella thing where, you know, the clubhouse was just vibing, everyone was doing their thing, and everyone was playing to their best of their ability. And I'm just curious to see if the outfielder LaMonte Wade Jr. can, you know, really have an impact, or was this just a fluke season? Mario, I'll start with you. Make or break.
Yeah, I got Evan Longoria just because I want to see a lot more consistency out of him. He was brought in for a decent amount. He's shown that he kind of wants to stick around with this lineup. He's bought into the Giants system. And I mean, he's batting .254 in his first year there, .261 in the second. It's on the rise. I want to see it on the rise a little bit more. If the team's going to have any substantial success that I think they want to see come from the Giants this season, you're going to need Evan Longoria to be producing and pulling his weight just as much as the rest of them.
Sure. And then Mateo, make or break.
Yeah, I mean, Mike has got to be Tommy La Stella. I mean, he's a guy who you know, we've seen him in Los Angeles and we've seen him in Oakland, and he's a guy who's had a lot of success in not small sample sizes, but in you know, over the span of a season. And it just felt like he got to San Francisco and was never really given that chance. Honestly, like immediately relegated to a platoon position. A lot of talent on that roster. Obviously, you can't blame them, but he's a guy that, you know, never really got the chance to be an everyday player. And I really believe that's where he sort of thrived. And so I'm looking for him, you know, as some of these, you know, Cinderella stories, like we were talking about, begin to, you know, come down to earth, what Tommy La Stella can do back in an everyday position, like we're used to seeing him. And can he have that sustained success and get his OPS above 800 again, like we're used to seeing from him?
Oh, and then I completely forgot to do positioning for the Dodgers real quick. I know, like, we can just quickly go back to there if you remembered. But positioning, I said starting pitching for them because that's a definite need that they need to address going forward. The rotation doesn't look hot right now, but obviously all that can change in the offseason. I think the bullpen's fine. But what are you guys' quick sentence on positioning for the Dodgers, and then follow that up with the Giants?
I mean, yeah, it's starting pitching. You got to add starting pitching. I mean, it's not, you know, a deal breaker if they don't. It's not the end of the world, but that's obviously the main concern. And then for the Giants, you got to figure out what you have. You got to play out the beginning of the season. You got to figure out what you have. If it was a fluke, if it wasn't a fluke, and then you got to go from there. But you can't make any decisions right now. You got to retain as much talent as you can, but you got to see the product on the field to know what you have.
Yeah. And then with you, Mario?
Yeah, it's the same thing. I'm going to need a starting pitching from the Los Angeles Dodgers. I mean, I was looking at this projection. I use, I think it's called RotoChamp or something like that for most of
Yeah.
my lineups when I'm looking at them. They didn't have Trevor Bauer listed there, and I guess it's because we don't really know what this future is. But they only had 4 starters, and I just don't even like to look at that whatsoever. So get a starting
Mhm.
pitcher rather. Even if you want to dip into the bullpen, I know Kenley Jansen's probably leaving, so you might want to go get someone
I'm
down
cool
there.
with
But
that.
they still have some decent relievers that can get the job
Yeah.
done. In respect to the Giants, if you want to tackle those ones as well, I just think maybe the management has given the sort of green light that they're not going to want to regroup with this team. So I
Mhm.
guess either they're looking at selling. It's really up in the air right now, depending on what they want
Yeah.
to do. I think they're going to have to go back to the rebuilding because there's no way they're going to reestablish that 107 win season and crack even close to the playoffs because they don't really have the pieces in place to do so.
Yeah, for sure. And then I just want to tie in for me positioning, I think it's like find your identity, like just evaluate, like look maybe a quarter through the season and just see like what your team is at. So then I'll ask you guys for the record. I don't think we went over this, but for the Giants, I had their record at 75 wins with a ceiling of 80. Just quick blurb. Mateo, what did you have?
I think 83 is realistic for them. Maybe a ceiling of like 85. I don't see them doing too much better than that.
All right. And then Mario.
With Mateo as well. I mean, they're in a pretty poor division, so they'll pick up wins as they come.
All right, let's head to the third and final California team, the San Diego Padres. They didn't do anything in the offseason. They lost Mark Melanson to the Arizona Diamondbacks. I don't know how you do that, but now you don't have your closer anymore. And I don't know. It's they're really like they have the names on paper. They have Manny Machado. They have Blake Snell. They have Hugh Darvish. They have Fernando Tatis Jr. They had Adam Frazier. They traded him to Seattle. I mean, like they had everything, and still couldn't. Did they even win 80 games? I think they won 79 last year, if I'm not mistaken. But
79, you're right. Yep.
oh wow,
On the
hit the
nose.
nail on the coffin right there. But I'm going to get into positioning right now because I think this is just addressing a need. Like their starting pitching was horrible last year. I mean, you look at guys like Blake Snell, who was dominant with the Rays, and you looked at his record versus the NL West heading into last season. It was really dominant. I think he was like 5-1 with like a 1 point something ERA. Like I thought he was going to be up for the Cy Young in the National League. It went horribly wrong. He questioned why he was an 83 overall in MLB The Show. I think he finished with a rating of 79. So didn't work out well for you there. Hugh Darvish wasn't great for them. I mean, like spurts here and there. Same with Blake Snell. Joe Musgrove threw a no hitter, but other than that, I thought he was very underwhelming. I mean, this whole starting pitching needs a huge revive. I'll start with you, Mateo. Oh, did I say their grade? Did I? Did I say it? No.
I don't think you did. No.
All right, I gave them an F because they
Oh
haven't done
man.
anything. They haven't done anything. But they've spent big money on players, and it hasn't even led to them winning 80 games in a 162 game season. So I'll start with you, Mateo. What's your grade, and what did you make of whatever this team did?
Yeah, I give them a C. I mean, you lost Melanson and your bullpen needs help badly. I mean, it's definitely not the type of offseason we're used to seeing from the Padres. I mean, we know they've been big spenders in the past, and we know they've thrown a lot of money at players to try to make a difference and sort of move that needle a little bit, and they just haven't in the past. But by no means do I think that this is going to be a bad season for them. I think they had a few rough breaks last year, especially with the pitching, and you get Clevenger back this year, so you're hoping that maybe that makes a little bit of a difference. And it's just these guys have to figure it out, and they gotta it looks great on paper, but you got to put it together on the field. And I have a little more confidence that the Padres are going to be able to do that this year, so that's why I didn't go too hard on them, because a lot of the pieces are sort of already in place.
I'm glad you do. Mary, what's your grade on them? Your assessment of the team?
Yeah, so I side a lot with Mateo in this episode, quite frankly, because I see them around the C+ range. Again, you're losing a big closer, and weirdly enough, you're losing it to Arizona. I don't know what their
Yeah.
plan is to use Melanson
Wow.
for, but I don't know why they're going out and conquering that kind of player, but they did, and you lost him, and that's the big storyline in this offseason. They haven't spent anything, and I'm in the same boat. Like, I think this team has what it takes to get stuff done. It's just a matter of executing, and they haven't yet to do so, and we've yet to see it from a fan's perspective. But the starting pitching, Evan, I don't know. I'm really high on it if they can get it going. They had a terrible season last year, to say the least, but Joe Musgrove, Mike Clevenger, Yu Darvish, and Blake Snell to round that out. That's one of the best rotations I can see in baseball if they're all executing and pulling their own weight. We didn't see it last year, and you're going to see what happens with a lot of teams with skilled starting rotations. We can even see this with the Toronto Blue Jays. They have a lot of skilled pieces in that starting rotation. If those guys don't pull their weight, you might look at the same situation as the San Diego Padres. But in regards to the Padres here, they got a big starting rotation that if they execute, you should be a little bit scared if you're the Los Angeles Dodgers to rule the roost, because this team it's not that it's scary, but it has the potential to be very scary if all the pieces are clicking, because they have a lot of pieces that are capable of getting clicking. That's my take on the San Diego Padres.
Cool. All right. I mean, like,
He's
yeah,
not
their
into it. He
starting
doesn't even want to
pitching,
entertain it.
their
No.
starting pitching was very underwhelming.
It was
I don't know
bad,
if that
yes.
has to just do with the fact of, like, maybe the pitching coach wasn't it, because I mean, when you're given those, that's why, I mean, the Padres were listed as the second place team in the NL West behind the Dodgers before the season started. It was the whole battle of LA and San Diego, the Padres get Hugh Darvish and Blake Snell, and the Dodgers countered with Trevor Bauer. It was like a huge, 1-2 debate, but very underwhelming. I have their record at 73 wins with a ceiling of 77, because I don't see them, it's unless they change their pitching coach, it seems like that's the guy that's holding them back, because you can't only win 79 games with this rotation. And now that they lost Mark Melancon, who was kind of like the scary guy coming out of the bullpen, you lose him to Arizona, which I don't know how and why Arizona signed him. It's not like he's really going to be put in save opportunities with the Diamondbacks, but fuck it, you're living in Arizona, beautiful city and beautiful area to be in. But I don't know, man. What are your guys' record predictions for the San Diego Padres? Am I being too harsh? Most likely, but that's the way I roll.
It is the way you roll, and I think I'm going to roll a little bit more positive, but I got them at 80 wins, ceiling 85. This team, again, I'm going to reiterate this. They have the pieces. They just have to put it together. They got the toolbox. They got the tools. They all got to have the toolbox, right? So it's all what they're going to do, how they're going to execute it once the season commences. But again, that bullpen is quite intriguing. I need to see how that situation plays out to give my exact pinpoint projections for this team. But regardless, if you're looking at the lineup and the pitching, they got a pretty hefty set of guys, so they can get it done. It's as long as they can maybe get a reliever, a closer, because we all know how closing out games is going to be massive this season, just as it is in every other season. I think that puts them over the top and in real contention for that first place spot.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the biggest difference maker is going to be, you want to talk about losses. Everybody seems to be forgetting a little bit about the big ad, which was Bob Melvin, right? The manager, obviously fantastic manager of the Oakland Athletics for, as long as I can remember. But, he's coming into San Diego right now, and maybe that's the difference maker. Maybe that's the thing that pushes this Padres team over the edge and gets the players to buy in a little bit and win some games. I have him at 89 wins. I'm pretty high on him. I mean, obviously, not going to be enough to top the Dodgers, and I could see Evans disappointed in that. But 89 wins, I think is a realistic benchmark for this Padres team. And I think if they can get there, they can call this season a success. I mean, ceiling, I don't have much higher than that. I mean, maybe 90, maybe 92. But I think 89 wins is very realistic for this team. New managerial look, it's going to be a new year. Maybe the pitchers are going to be a little bit better off with the staff that Bob Melvin puts around them. But I think this team drastically underperformed last year, so I'm expecting a much better season for them this season.
Yeah, I mean, I also think like their bullpen is not the strongest in the MLB.
Mm-hmm.
And
not yet. We can see if anything else plays out, but as of right now,
teams have won 90 games without a bullpen before, right? You look at Toronto; they did it without a bullpen. So
yeah, true. But I think that was just like I think they're, I mean, not a debate, but like their offense was exponentially better than the Padres is. And but we'll talk about positioning. I just said you got to revitalize that starting pitching rotation, just figure out what was the nick in them that caused them to all of them to underperform so heavily. I mean, they do have some positive. I can't remember. I'm trying to remember who the pitcher was. Maybe it was Chris Paddock, if I could be mistaken, that has potential young pitcher that was showing potential for the San Diego Padres. But I mean, like, other than that, man, like a lot of underperforming. Where are you at, Mateo? Is it more of a like stay where you're at, see what you can get? I mean, they don't have a ton that they could offer to teams to bring someone in that can really help them. But where are you at here?
I think you can stay pretty well where you at. I think the obvious new look here is Bob Melvin. I think that's kind of the key to this whole thing.
Yeah.
Is the new voice in the locker room, the new person who's going to try to take control of this team and take the reins a little bit, because I think they were honestly lacking a bit of leadership, and that was one of the problems. And you didn't really have that in the players, with the exception of Eric Hosmer, as far as like a voice in the locker room goes. So Bob Melvin is a guy who's respected. He knows how to get a team to win, and he's made some pretty decent seasons out of some pretty bad Oakland A's teams, as I'm sure Mario knows. But I think this team, you stay where you are. You've got a lot of talent on the roster. You've paid a lot of money for all that talent on the roster, and you got to ride the wave.
Mhm. All right, and then Mario, where are you at?
Yeah, so I know what Bob Melvin could do. He's a miracle worker at some points. And it felt like for the longest time, especially throughout all of last year, the down year for the Padres, was that they felt entitled that they had to win.
Yep.
They felt that the wins were going to come to them just because they were a skilled roster of 1 through 9. And their starting pitchers were 1 through, I guess, 4 or 5, where you had a lot of depth there, back end pitching. You had it all. And you had Melanson, who was a terrific reliever as well. They thought they were going to get all the wins necessary, that they were going to go into Dodger Stadium and conquer all that, kill the Giants, and then none of it happened. So it's I think Bob Melvin, the new voice is gonna be very rejuvenating into the squad. She's gonna probably bring a little bit more of an old school mentality, saying you had to work for all this stuff. Nothing's gonna come easy. And I think a lot of these guys, especially the younger guys, like if you're going to throw in Tatis Jr. and Manny Machado, those guys might excel to that as well, saying we can't take this stuff. We have to understand that we have to work for it, and we're going to get the results the hard way, rather than the other manager who was saying, his name just doesn't cross my mind.
Was it Chris Woodward?
I think so.
Is it Chris Woodward?
Chris Woodward was the
Texas?
GM in Texas.
Is he?
Former Dodgers bench coach.
I don't remember. I know he was a young guy, but he did not do any favors for this team. Not the best voice in the locker room. So I'm thinking a new voice is going to help this team. They got the talent to do it. It's all about executing and not feeling entitled, because this team has never been entitled for anything whatsoever.
Yeah,
Jace Tingler. Jace Tingler. Sorry, I got him confused. That was the name. Yep, my bad.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we said what we had to say about the Padres, more than enough. Let's move on to the 2 disappointing teams in the MLB, the Colorado Rockies, to start. Like, I don't even know what to grade them, because like no one goes to Colorado in free agency willingly. Like, I'm going to give them a D, because they're going to lose Trevor Story most likely. And it's tough, man. It's tough because it's such a hitter-friendly ballpark given the elevation, and you would think more people would want to go there, especially like hard-hitting bats. But it's just the opposite of it, where they're just not seeing any success whatsoever. Oh wait, I'm sorry, we didn't go over team MVP and Cy Young for the San Diego Padres real quick. We can all just say it in one. For me, the MVP, Fernando Tatis, Cy Young, Blake Snell. Does anybody else have anyone besides Tatis?
Yeah, I gotta go
pretty well
unanimous
my
with
picks,
two.
Okay,
Yeah.
who's your Cy Youngs?
Cy Young. I had Blake Snell as well. I mean, he's a guy
Okay.
that I saw him a lot in Tampa Bay as a Jays fan, and I know exactly what he's capable of. And
Yeah.
a little bit of a disappointing start to his career in San Diego, but no doubt he'll bounce back.
And then Cy Young for you, Mario?
It would have to be Blake Snell. Yes, it's
All right,
hard
for
to
sure.
go against it.
All right, we'll go to the Rockies now. Underwhelming team. I mean, they don't even have like prospect hope. It's kind of just like nothing really. I mean, like they have a few guys in their system, but nothing that's really going to take this team over the top. And unfortunately, they're just in a very heavy division. Although it is weak, like you're not going to take down teams like the Padres still, or the Dodgers, or the Giants. So you're still bottom of the barrel, but they haven't done much. Lose Story. Anybody, do you have anything to say about them, or can we just like quickly get into the MVPs and record?
let's just get into it. I think some of the stories here are going to come from a bit of the make or break sort of
Mhm.
situations here. I think that's
Yeah.
sort of where we want to focus for the Rockies.
All right, let's go make or break. So for me, make or break, Mateo got a sneak peek at this. I said Raimel Tapia. I think he has definitely potential, and the speed is there. They used him as a pinch runner numerous times. I think just with Trevor Story leaving, Tapia can find a way into this batting lineup and into the field. Definitely someone who can provide stolen bases, runs, hits. I mean, the power isn't there, but something that he can definitely develop over the offseason. Mateo, I'll go with you, make or break.
Yeah, so I'm torn between two guys I couldn't exactly pick, but you know how I love to pull my my young pitchers out of nowhere a little bit. But this guy isn't necessarily out of nowhere. It's Kyle Freeland, who's a guy that's we've seen a lot in the past and who is a fantastic sinker baller, which you think would play really well in Coors Field because, you know, obviously keep the ball on the ground, you don't give up those mammoth home runs
Yeah.
that you see all the time in Colorado. But he's a guy that after his first season, or I guess it was his second season actually in 2018, he just hasn't been able to put it together and have another consistent good season again. And I think it's very disappointing. And you've seen it a lot in Colorado, where pitchers, you know, they say pitchers go to die in Colorado, but it's a guy who's had a lot of success, 17-7, 2.85 ERA in 2018, and just hasn't been able to put it together ever since then. 2021, not some concerning, some you know, encouraging numbers actually. You know, you're seeing a little bit of a bounce back, maybe not necessarily in the ERA department, but you know, he pitched a lot more innings. He's you know, staying healthier. He's getting more strikeouts than he has in the past. And so I'd really like to see Kyle Freeland be able to turn it around and sort of maybe not get back to the level that he was on at 2018, but just approach that level of being a reliable starting pitcher again. And maybe that doesn't come in Colorado. Maybe it's he needs a change of scenery. And, you know, obviously the Rockies are only going to let him go so far before they start to realize that maybe he has more trade value than he does as a pitcher on their team. And the other guy that I like is Connor Joe. He's a guy who, you know, had a little bit of injury struggles last year, only about 180 at bats. Evan probably has heard the name a little bit. Other people in baseball, maybe not so much. Didn't really play a ton last year, but a guy that, you know, he hit 285, 848 OPS. He's a guy that, you know, plays a lot of positions, has a lot of versatility, and is, you know, a really underrated piece of this Rockies team. You know, you think about the names like McMahon and Blackman and Tapia and those other guys too, the headliners. Connor Joe is a guy that's going to be, you know, a key piece of this team, and he's going to get a lot of chances. So, yeah.
All right. Yeah. I mean, Connor Joe, I've heard of him like briefly. I mean, he's nothing special,
No.
but definitely, I mean, anyone in Colorado has potential to do something because they're probably going to be the only thing talked about then. But Mary, I'll go to you, make or break.
Yeah, so when I think of Colorado, the one thing and the biggest thing I think of is how small that ballpark is, how many home runs fly through the air, and just how horrible of a pitcher's ballpark it can be. So one guy that loves to hit there, and he plays on the team, and he had a terrific season last year, CJ Cron. He hit almost 30 home runs last season, batted 281, terrific rebound season after with the Tigers before, with only just 4 home runs and 190 batting average. So he had a rebound season last season. I think we can see it again this year. He's definitely loves hitting at Coors Field, and I can see him putting up probably one of the more prolific numbers we've seen at Coors Field in quite some time because he loves to play in Colorado.
Yeah, CJ Cron does have a lot of power in that bat. I mean, it's incredible what he can do, and Colorado does have everything he needs in order to mash 30 to 35 home runs in a season. We could get to team MVP, team Cy Young, tie it all into one. I have Charlie Blackmon as my MVP and German Marquez as my Cy Young. I just don't see any potential in any starting pitcher on the Rockies besides him. And Charlie Blackmon is the only like credible MLB player that's still in Colorado somehow. So those are my two. Mario, who are your two for Cy Young and team MVP?
And I really hate to keep going with the similarities here, but it has to be Charlie Blackmon
It's so
for
hard.
MVP and German Marquez. If I want to say maybe one more that can maybe challenge Blackmon, this is a very big stretch. I know Ryan McMahon is he's been pretty solid in his tenure with Colorado, so maybe he makes a run for the money, but it's a pretty obvious one. Charlie Blackmon can take the cake here.
All right, and then for Cy Young, I'm sorry, just Cy Young as well.
Yeah, so I said
so you said German Marquez.
Yeah.
Okay, and then okay, Mateo, now you.
Yeah, I mean Ryan McMahon is a guy that I had as well. I think Mara mentioned him as well. He's a guy that hit quite a few home runs last year,
Mhm.
and not a ton of well, I guess no, he had 500 at bats. So, but he still hit 23 home runs. But the thing that sticks out to me is the slugging percentage was only 449, and by no means is that low, but it definitely could be higher. So
Mhm.
for a batter that's got a lot of power and plays in a field like Coors, he's definitely got the opportunity to spray the ball a little more, maybe hit the gaps a little more, and he'll become a better hitter because of it. And I mean, at the age of 27, he's still got some room to grow. I mean, a bit of a late bloomer to his career, but Ryan McMahon's a guy who's got a lot of potential, especially as a power hitter in this league, and I think he'll be a bright spot for the Rockies this year.
Yeah, I think they could find any bright spot, but I mean, positioning. I'll just say it because it's pretty. I mean, like they just got to rebuild, retool this lineup, figure out some way to drive free agents to come to Colorado because it's very difficult. I mean, they've been a bottom of the barrel team for I can't even remember how long. It's just a really impoverished franchise. I mean, is there anything else you guys want to add besides the fact that they need to just figure out something?
I mean, the interesting thing about the Rockies is the fact that, they have one of the worst farm system rankings in the league, and they're one of the worst teams in baseball as well. I think
Yeah,
MLB.com had them at 27 the last time they did a ranking, and they are,
that's not good.
probably like the 27th team in baseball as well.
Yeah,
So,
that's not good.
you don't have a farm system, you don't have a good team on the field. So it may be time to sort of, start over and build it the right way, and go through the draft and build a style that's sustainable, like we've seen with Tampa Bay and in LA and teams
Yeah.
that try to emulate that sort of thing. I think the Rockies kind of need to get on that boat.
I think this is the next Pittsburgh Pirates too.
I
Like
hope not,
they're,
man.
I hope not for the sake of baseball, but it's just not. They
You can
have
only have
nothing.
one.
You can only have one. They don't have really an owner that's going to go out and spend anymore. It appears like they don't want to keep Trevor Story. They didn't want to keep Nolan Arenado, the veteran there. So
They got nothing for either of them too.
and
Oh, I
Oh my
nothing,
think
god.
it's
no
like,
return.
it's more of just like they wanted to leave, but
Well,
they
that plays
couldn't
a
find
big
a
role in it as
deal to
well.
get something for them. Like, dude, if you're gonna lose them, like fucking get something in return. Like, imagine what you could get for Story and Nolan Arenado. I mean, you could get a haul.
Any other team would have capitalized and wouldn't have been the 27th best
Yeah.
farm system after that.
Yeah,
But
but I think we could segue over to the Diamondbacks, who are definitely going to be fighting for the Pirates for the worst record in baseball. You know, they bring in Mark Melanson, but other than that, I mean, they got nothing else. Let's just say record wise, I have them at 48 wins with a ceiling of 53. I'm just going to go through it all. Team MVP, Ketel Marte, although I think they should trade Marte to get assets for him because there's zero purpose of him staying on your team. He provides value, but nothing that you need this very instant. So I think there are a lot of teams in the market for a second baseman. Potentially, if they want to make a trade with the Padres could use a second baseman. I mean, there's just a ton. You know, the Blue Jays could potentially use a second baseman. But yeah, then Team Cy Young, I have Zach Gallen because he's the only pitcher I trust in that rotation. And make or break year, I just have Ketel Marte. Hopefully, he keeps it going so that he can build up his trade value and that the Diamondbacks can get something in return for him. I mean, they'll definitely get something, but maybe more than what they had thought last year. Mateo, I'll start with you. Just go down the list for me here, buddy. Like, what do we got?
yeah, I mean, I've got for my MVP, obviously Ketel Marte, no surprises. He's the best hitter in this lineup. He's going to be, he's the best defender in this lineup as well. He's going to be that guy for them. Zach Gallen's a good pick for Cy Young. I think it's worth noting Luke Weaver. I mean, he's had success in the past, obviously not in recent years, but 2019 was a very good year for him in 12 starts and to pitch to a 2.94 ERA. I think the really interesting thing about him is the spin rate on that fastball is in the 91st percentile of the league. And,
Jesus.
that puts him, not necessarily to make the comparison, but that puts him in the same, sort of conversation as guys like, DeGrom and that with higher spin rates like that. And even Gosman is in that sort of range. And not to say that he's going to be an excellent pitcher, but the fact that having a fastball with that kind of spin rate is going to help you a little bit. And if he can, sort of sustain that range, then he'll have at least one pitch that he can get batters out with. And that might be more than a lot of these Diamondbacks can say.
All right, and then record wise,
Just for my make or break as well, I have an outfielder, Pavin Smith. who, not a ton to show for his career, played a little bit in the shortened season and played almost a full season this year. And he's a lefty bat, and he's a guy that, I am pretty high on him as a young player, only 26. The really interesting thing for me about him is he hit 12 home runs last year, nothing super impressive, but if you look at the numbers and chase rate and whiff percentage, and I don't know how invested you guys are in a little bit more of the StatCast sort of stats, but again, not to make the comparison, but that sort of is in the same conversation as a guy like Juan Soto. And you talk about a young left-handed outfielder with the discipline of Juan Soto and decent power numbers. I think he's got the chance to obviously not be in that same tier of player as Juan Soto, but he's got the chance to be a respectable player for this Diamondbacks team, and he's going to get a lot of chances to prove himself. So I'm excited to see what Pavin Smith can do.
All right, and then record-wise, what are we thinking here?
50 wins, max 53. I mean, the focus should be.
Cool.
I think the focus should be on what are you going to get in terms of development, and what are you going to get, some surprise storylines from these players maybe. But I wouldn't look too much into the overall record of the Diamondbacks season, because it's probably not going to be pretty.
Yeah. All right. Well, so we're all, and then Mario, top it off with us before we conclude.
Yeah. I'll give you
just go down the list for me.
Yeah, I'll give you a quick one. Probably 50 wins, 53 wins is probably where they're going to lie. Team MVP is going to go unanimous. Ketel Marte, he is the best player on the team, so you can't really bring it into question. Team Cy Young, I'm probably going to have to go with Madison Bumgarner, maybe just for the topic of discussion. We've said Gallen, we've said Weaver. Let me throw in Madison Bumgarner as well. And very quickly as well, for the make or break, I got David Peralta. I mean, he's batted 260 last year, batted 300 the year before. He can keep up a high batting average, and he doesn't get the power behind the bat either. So I think he's got 13 home runs combined the last 2 seasons. So if he can keep the batting average up, get on base, maybe he's going to help get some runs for this team. But there's nothing very pretty coming out in Arizona, and it hasn't been coming out pretty in Arizona for quite a while.
All right. Well, I think that will conclude the NL West segment. We talked about all the teams here, potential make or breaks. I mean, great show. I'm so happy we're finally able to talk about my division. Long time coming, being able to express how I feel about the teams and all that. And yeah, thank you guys. Great episode. Continuing with Dynasty Sports Network, and excited to get everything going again. And thank you guys for tuning in to another episode.
Take care.
Take it easy, everybody.